Did you know there are countries that once existed but have vanished from the map? Places that had their own flags, governments, and armies, but which you now couldn't send a letter to even if you wanted to. These aren't mythical lands like Atlantis. These were real, tangible nations, home to millions of people whose borders have been redrawn, whose names have been erased, and whose stories have been largely forgotten by the wider world. It's a strange thought, isn't it? That a place as seemingly permanent as a country can just cease to be. Today we're uncovering the stories of nations lost to history. We'll be traveling across continents and centuries, from the heart of Europe to the peaks of the Himalayas. Let's start in the heart of Europe with a name that thunders with military might and history: Prussia. If you look for it on a modern map, you won't find it. Yet for centuries, Prussia was not just a country, it was a dominant European powerhouse. It began as a small duchy on the Baltic coast in the 16th century, but through shrewd diplomacy, strategic marriages, and military prowess, it grew exponentially. The Prussian state was famously described not as a country with an army, but an army with a country. Leaders like Frederick the Great turned Prussia into a formidable force. By the 19th century, under Otto von Bismarck, Prussia masterminded German unification. In 1871, the German Empire was born, with Prussia as its dominant state. The final death blow for Prussia came after World War II. The Allied powers saw Prussianism as the root cause of German aggression. In 1947, the Allied Control Council passed Law No. 46, which formally abolished the state of Prussia. Its territories were carved up and distributed among new German states and other countries. The name was scrubbed from the map, its institutions dissolved, and so the state that had built an empire, defined an era, and shaped European history for centuries was officially erased by the stroke of a pen. Now we move forward in time to a country many people watching this will actually remember: Yugoslavia. The name itself means Land of the South Slavs, created after World War I to unite related ethnic groups, uniting Serbs, Croats, Slovenes, Bosniaks, Macedonians, and Montenegrins into a single state. Under Josip Broz Tito, the Socialist Federation held together through brotherhood and unity, suppressing nationalist sentiments. For many, Yugoslavia seemed like a success story. But when Tito died in 1980, the glue that held Yugoslavia together began to dissolve. The collapse was swift and brutal. Slovenia and Croatia declared independence in 1991, triggering devastating wars marked by ethnic cleansing. By the end of the 90s, Yugoslavia was gone, replaced by independent states. A country born from an ideal had died in a nightmare. Not all national breakups are violent. Our next stop is Czechoslovakia. Like Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia was born from the Austro-Hungarian Empire after World War I, bringing together Czechs and Slovaks. From the outset, it was a beacon of democracy in interwar Central Europe. In 1938, it was betrayed in the Munich Agreement, and in 1939 dismantled and occupied by Hitler. After liberation, Czechoslovakia fell under Soviet influence, and in 1948, a communist government took power. The Prague Spring of 1968 promised socialism with a human face, but was crushed by Soviet invasion. In 1989, Czechoslovakia had its peaceful Velvet Revolution, led by Václav Havel. With democracy restored, questions about Czech-Slovak relations resurfaced. The Czechs and Slovaks had different languages, economic situations, and political priorities. Unlike Yugoslavia's violence, leaders negotiated a split. The debate was about self-determination, not hatred. On January 1, 1993, the country peacefully dissolved into the Czech Republic and Slovakia. The amicable process was dubbed the Velvet Divorce. Today, the two countries maintain a close relationship. Our next vanished country defined the Cold War for 40 years, the German Democratic Republic, or East Germany. After Germany's defeat in World War II, the Allies divided the country into 4 occupation zones. As the Cold War intensified, the Western powers unified their zones, creating West Germany. In response, the Soviets established the GDR in their zone in 1949, a communist state under Moscow's control. In 1961, desperate to stop mass exodus, East German authorities constructed the Berlin Wall. Life in the GDR was a paradox. The state provided guaranteed employment, healthcare, and education, but at a huge cost to personal freedom. The Stasi had one informant for every 63 citizens. Neighbors reported on each other. By 1989, mass protests erupted across East Germany as the Soviet Union weakened. On November 9, 1989, a confused official announced citizens could cross the border. Within hours, euphoric crowds swarmed the Berlin Wall. Less than a year later, the GDR was formally dissolved. Its territory was absorbed into West Germany. A country of 17 million people had simply ceased to exist. Let's journey back further to a truly colossal entity, the Ottoman Empire. This wasn't just a country, it was a vast empire stretched from Vienna to the Persian Gulf and across North Africa. For over 600 years, it was a major world power, the seat of the Islamic Caliphate. The empire was remarkably diverse, governing Turks, Arabs, Greeks, Armenians, Slavs, Jews, and many other peoples. It practiced the millet system, allowing different religious communities self-governance. The Ottoman legacy is still visible today in the food, architecture, and customs of dozens of modern countries. But by the 19th century, the once mighty empire was in terminal decline. It was dubbed the sick man of Europe, with European powers circling, hoping to pick apart its territories. The empire struggled to modernize its economy, administration, and military. Disastrous wars, particularly against Russia, saw it lose huge swaths of territory. Greece, Serbia, Bulgaria, Romania all gained independence. The final blow came with World War I. The Ottoman Empire sided with Germany and Austria-Hungary. The war was a catastrophe. It faced defeat on multiple fronts and suffered an Arab revolt, famously aided by Lawrence of Arabia. The empire also perpetrated the horrific Armenian genocide. By 1918, the empire was shattered and occupied. The Treaty of Sèvres proposed to carve up what was left. This sparked the Turkish War of Independence led by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. His forces drove out occupying powers and abolished the Sultanate in 1922. In 1923, he established the modern, secular Republic of Turkey, ending 623 years of Ottoman rule. The rest of the empire's territories were carved up by Britain and France, creating the modern map of the Middle East. New countries like Iraq, Syria, Jordan emerged. We now climb to the highest plateau on Earth to a nation whose status remains contentious: Tibet. For centuries, Tibet was a unique and largely isolated kingdom nestled in the Himalayas. Governed by theocratic rule, its spiritual and political leader was the Dalai Lama. This vast land developed a distinct culture, language, and profound form of Buddhism. Tibet's relationship with China was complex, sometimes a vassal state, sometimes effectively independent. During China's century of humiliation, Tibet functioned as independent, with its own government, army, currency, and treaties. Everything changed in 1950. After Mao's victory, the People's Liberation Army invaded Tibet. The small Tibetan army was no match. In 1951, Tibetan delegates were forced to sign the 17-point agreement. Chinese control tightened over the following years, leading to widespread resentment and resistance. This culminated in a massive uprising in Lhasa in 1959. The uprising was brutally crushed, resulting in tens of thousands of deaths. The Dalai Lama was forced to flee into exile in India, where he established a government in exile. Since then, Tibet has been governed as an autonomous region of China. For its supporters, its time as an independent nation has been erased, its culture suppressed. For our final entry, we have a country that vanished not through war, but through a vote. The Kingdom of Sikkim, a tiny Buddhist nation nestled between Nepal, Bhutan, and Tibet. For over 300 years, Sikkim was an independent monarchy ruled by the Chogyal, a land of stunning natural beauty, famous for Kangchenjunga, the world's third highest peak. Sikkim's history was a delicate balancing act. Surrounded by larger neighbors, its survival depended on shrewd diplomacy. During the British Raj, Sikkim became a protectorate. Britain controlled defense and foreign affairs, while the Chogyal kept internal control. In 1947, Sikkim signed a similar treaty with India, becoming a protectorate of India. The society mixed Lepcha people, Bhutia of Tibetan origin, and a growing majority of ethnic Nepalis. That demographic shift proved crucial. By the 1970s, the Nepali majority agitated for more democracy and an end to the monarchy. The Chogyal had married American socialite Hope Cook and was perceived as asserting independence from India. This alarmed New Delhi given China's moves in Tibet. In 1973, after massive riots, the Chogyal requested Indian troops. India thereby gained effective control. In 1975, the pro-India Prime Minister appealed for statehood. The Indian army moved in, placed the Chogyal under house arrest, and disarmed his palace guards. A referendum was organized. Officially, 97.5% voted to abolish the monarchy and merge with India. On May 16, 1975, Sikkim became India's 22nd state. The kingdom had voted itself out of existence. So there you have it. 7 countries, 7 very different stories of how a nation can disappear from the world map. From the deliberate dismantling of Prussia, to the violent implosion of Yugoslavia, the peaceful velvet divorce of Czechoslovakia, and the unique absorption of Sikkim, each one is a powerful reminder that the political world is in constant flux. Borders that seem so solid and permanent are often just temporary lines drawn in the sand. These stories aren't just historical trivia, they are the stories of millions of people whose identity, citizenship, and lives were profoundly changed. The world map is not a finished document, it's a living, breathing thing constantly being edited by war, politics, revolution, and even popular vote. The countries we know today may seem eternal, but history shows us that nothing is guaranteed. Understanding how nations vanish gives us deeper appreciation for the forces that shape our world, the fragility of national identity, and the dynamism of human history. It makes you wonder which countries on today's map might be subjects of a video like this 100 years from now. I hope this journey through the lost nations of history has been as fascinating for you as it was for me. There are so many more stories like these out there, each with its own incredible twists and turns. Enjoyed this fact? Subscribe to Lazio and discover more amazing world secrets every day. Thanks for watching.